Just as a disclaimer, we want you to know that some of the movies that we will be reviewing were shot in a different time and era where people of race and sex were not treated equally. We understand this and hope you do too. The movies or anything that happened on the sets are not the views of this podcast or what this show is intended to be all about.
Exactly. And we want to give due diligence in presenting the movie and not the views of the cast or directors or anyone involved. But we also feel it's necessary to let the audience know some of the background information to get a feel for what was happening at the time of shooting the film. Again, we hope you understand that we do not agree with everything that went on, and we just want to give out the information. And with that being said, hope you enjoy the show.
Century Fox and George Lucas bring you an adventure unlike anything on your planet. Star Wars.
Stop that ship! Faster!
I'd forgotten how much I hate space travel.
Here they come. You're coming in too fast.
The story of a boy, a girl, and a universe.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
It's a big, sprawling space saga of rebellion and romance.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
Come with you to Alderaan. There's nothing for me here now. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
It's a spectacle, light years ahead of its time. It's an epic of heroes.
Relax. Hit the accelerator.
And villains. And aliens from 1,000 worlds.
Go that way. You'll be malfunctioning within a day, you nearsighted scrap pile.
Star Wars. 1 billion years in the making.
The Force will be with you. Always.
Happy birthday!
It's your birthday.
Our little baby's all grows up. You know what? Shut up. Come on. No. Our little baby's all grows up.
Sweet birthday, baby.
Happy birthday. Grown up!
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
It is your birthday period. Statement of fact.
Hey! Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, dear
Happy birthday.
Because you're grown up and you're grown up and you're grown up.
Number one birthday present.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Tragedy of Cinema podcast, the birthday celebration. That's right, we've been on the air for a little, 2 years today, as a matter of fact.
Yep.
So here we go. We're going to be talking about one of the greatest movies that I love and pretty much of all time, sci-fi, Star Wars: A New Hope. But before we get there, Terrence, let me go ahead and introduce these two fellow cohorts. I'm your host, Jimbo, and of course, joined by me since the beginning of the inception of the podcast, we have...
the one who couldn't, unfortunately, get John Williams to create an epic score for us, Terence Davis.
But we did find a clown that went wah, wah, wah for Terrence's introduction. And yes, the new triple co-host, the triple threat with our new stooge.
And it's Kyle Zender. Hello, everybody.
Kyle, what's the podcast meant to you? You've only been here a few times, but...
it means everything to me. It's my only reason for living. And frankly, if this thing ends, everything does.
This is true. So we're going to be talking about Star Wars. But Terrence, go ahead and... What does this podcast meant to you since we've started? Some things we've changed. Some favorite moments, some non-favorite moments. Glitches. So, recording stuff and forgetting to hit plug in the microphone.
We've never done that.
Who would make that mistake?
Let's just rewind about 3 minutes ago.
So, the podcast is brought a lot of meaning. I kind of just now I'm all jumbled. So it's really cool being on the podcast because A, I get to see a lot of movies I would have otherwise not seen. B, I get to hit movies in my backlog that I realistically would have never gotten to. It's helped, talk about a lot of these movies outside of the podcast. I'll just be talking shop with some people, and I feel more informative than I was before, which is only slightly. But it's been really awesome. It's been really fun, and I feel like we've definitely evolved from episode 1. Which was very cut and dry, and then we took us a couple episodes to find ourselves, to get organized, and here we are. And I think we're in a pretty good place, and it's always just trying to improve and go from there.
I think you guys are both entirely right, and this is not just obviously speaking to you guys as personal experiences. I haven't been here for nearly as long, obviously, but I mean it's great to have a structure to kind of look at films from more of an analytical perspective and actually get this growing experience where you learn to appreciate films even better. And like I said, like you said, getting around that backlog, which just constantly grows and rarely ever gets down.
Exactly.
But having a podcast schedule be okay, I need to watch this movie this week, gets me around to it in a way that I just wouldn't have otherwise, and I really appreciate that.
Right, and I think that's one of the reasons me and Terence talked earlier that he had never seen 12 Angry Men, and that one movie that stands out to me for Terence because he went back and watched it and realized, man, this is a really good movie.
Yeah, it's still...
And then I always bring up when we were doing the Turtles movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, where Terrence got to the part where we were talking about he's like, they brought the nunjas in? Where it was nunjas. He just cracked up. That sticks out. But not only that, but also all of our fan interaction we had, with the Lost Boys episode. I thought that was really fun when the fans gave back. It spawned the Twilight Zone series because there was so much interest from another listener of ours that they wanted to start a podcast with us, so I just added it to this one. So we cover the Twilight Zone episode by episode. So there's a lot of things going on, but it's only possible because of the listeners like you
Absolutely.
guys. So we love you guys. And at the end of this episode, we already have some coming in that I will be playing some audio clips from people from all over the world that wanted to be part of this podcast. We wanted to show our love, so we're going to let them say what they want to say to us or about us.
You're right.
And by the way, Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. Just let's go ahead and get that out there right now.
Here's what I find that's very unique, and I find it really fun with us and our audience is it's not too many times you get to see a podcast butt heads with us audience in good fun. I mean, obviously we have Jimbo on the Die Hard is not a movie train.
Mm-hmm. It's the wrong train.
Where I'm
Crazy
secretly
Train,
on.
Will.
It is a Christmas movie. And we've also had our differences when it came to the Lost Boys. Particularly when we talked about the Breakfast Club, we got a lot of backlash there. But it's all in good fun, and we all laugh about it and we all make jokes about it, and it's really fun. And it's kind of what keeps me coming back is those kind of interactions.
Right,
it's hilarious.
Right, and it's fun, and it's like I said, I'm watching movies that I've never even saw before. And I'm realizing that there is a lot of movies outside of what I knew about that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And I really like it because some movies, let's face it, Terrence, I know some of these movies you would never even watch, you would have never even heard of if it wasn't for this. So, and Kyle,
Gave the time of day too.
Kyle owns every movie ever existed already, so it's okay. So
I'm trying to drink an ocean.
right. So, like I said, this is going to be episode 57. It's going to be Star Wars: A New Hope, and there's 2 years birthday celebration. Hopefully, many more to come. So, Terrence, take it away.
All right, Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope came out May 25th, 1977. The year Jimbo was born. God, you're old.
Yeah.
Runtime.
You know what we call that? We call that a Jedi Master, and Kyle is a Padawan.
Barely an Ewok.
I was getting ready to say, while we recognize you as part of the podcast, you are not officially a Jedi podcaster.
So you're saying I'm not part of the council? We'll see how that goes.
They don't call me
Watch the younglings.
They don't call me Jedi Jimbo for nothing.
So, box office budget, we're looking at $11 million. Fun fact: originally, the budget for this movie was $8 million.
Diocho.
Yeah,
That's Spanish for 8.
George Lucas and Gary Coots, in particular, the two producers for the film, they were sweating bullets for about a week. And they actually fell behind in production because they were too busy trying to figure out how to stretch the numbers of what they had before 20th Century Fox was finally like, okay, we'll give you a little extra. To which, they went back on schedule and they were able to wrap up on time. But yeah, it was definitely really rough for George Lucas. And, I'm sure all three of us have notes on it, but on the set, he was a wreck, particularly because this was a really big film compared to some of the previous things he's done at the time.
And just a big film in general for the time.
Yeah. And he's a very, to himself person, and so he had to interact with a lot of people at once, and so that was overwhelming for him. But yeah, no, they got, basically, they got through. They got their $11 million.
All there for it, definitely.
Yeah.
Without it would have been a much worse film. In so many respects, it would have all fallen apart.
Yeah, for sure.
We would not be talking about Star Wars today in nearly the same way.
And so, if you account for inflation, you're looking at about $47.7 million. If we're looking at opening weekend, this is where it gets surprising versus, it's gross USA. So opening weekend, it didn't make much at all. It made $1.5 million. That's it.
That is,
yeah. So it didn't even equal. Usually we've seen a lot with movies that we've covered previously. They'll double, sometimes triple if they're really, really good. But this one, opening weekend, it did not take off.
Yeah,
but it did later because we look at the gross and it made $460 million. If you account for inflation, that's $2 billion today.
That is incredible.
Right?
No.
And then that's just gross USA. If we look at cumulative gross worldwide, that's $775 million. That's $3.4 billion today.
You know what we call that? Cha-ching.
So yeah, it definitely came back, and I actually have the numbers for the box office. As usual, I'm looking up the top 5 box office for the year because it's too far back to find the individual month still. So I have the box office top 5 for 1977. At number 1, to no surprise, Star Wars Episode 4: New Hope at $195 million. Now, to give you such how big this was, at number 2, which only made $47 million, was The Deep. And then following up with The Spy Who Loved Me, $45 million. Oh God, $41 million, and Exorcist II: The Heretic, $30 million.
But do you know what's even really more interesting than that is, think of the ticket prices back then. They were nowhere near what they cost for a movie today.
Exactly.
And that even makes it more interesting because I know there's a friend of mine named Mark that said when this came out, he was in high school, and said that for a solid straight year, it played at the theaters from that May to the next May. and they said it was packed all the time, and we'd be wrapped around the blocks and stuff. So I thought, it's something.
Just raking it in, cultural phenomenon.
Exactly.
Everyone needed to see it. People even watched the Christmas special because they just needed more Star Wars that soon.
And it's like we were talking about earlier. I mean, sci-fi and fantasy were just looked at as like only children's,
largely juvenile, immature, fantasies, all those kind of things.
So when you realize, like, oh, hey, adults can enjoy this too. This is definitely where sci-fi really picks up, and special effects too, and that's another thing we'll get into. But continuing on, we got obviously this was directed by George Lucas, who usually he has more of a writing background than a directing background. As far as directing, he's done Star Wars 1 through 6, American Graffiti, and THX 1138. As far as writing, obviously, then we add in all the Indiana Jones movies, which that was directed by Steven Spielberg. Everybody knows they're good friends. And then he continues to help write for Star Wars to this day. So I think that's pretty cool. He comes in and out. You'll see him. Sometimes he's uncredited. He just comes in, does a little bit of writing, and then bounces.
A little punch work kind of stuff.
He's
up a little
still
bit.
involved in some kind of way with the Star Wars franchise.
It's definitely he's still for the majority of his life it was his baby, and now it's more like his adult son that he has an influence over, but not it does its own thing now. It does what Disney's bidding basically.
But do you ever wonder if he gets that itch to go back and see some of the mistakes or problems that Disney's doing, let's say that he thinks, and wishes he would go back and do it the way he wanted to do it?
I think,
or is all those billions of dollars in his face now? He can't see because
I'm of two minds about it. Where I think it's a little bit of both, but I also think if we had it the first way, then you kind of get things like the touch up of the original 3, where you kind of get a lot of unnecessary stuff. Now I'm definitely not doubting this man as a visionary, but there has been mistakes, and we've seen it with. I mean, a lot of people put the original higher than sort of the remaster remake that added in the special effects, a couple of extra scenes. We were just talking about her earlier. That whole music's bit in the Jabba the Hutt.
And it was unfortunate for him that although he did make some questionable decisions on his re-edits later on the line of those original films, he did receive extreme negative feedback and vile hatred spewed towards him for those kind of special editions and re-edits he did, to the point where I bet now he could voice some of those concerns and say if I was going to do it, I would have done it this way. But in general, in terms of getting back into the director's seat or the writer's chair and being I'm going to fix up Star Wars, I think he's totally fine with just leaving it be and letting it do its own thing, because he's already the world made it very clear to him they don't want him to change what was already there.
Well, I kind of wish he'd go fix those last 3. But
Well, here's the thing. It's like I was saying before.
I don't think he can do it better. Being honest,
despite all the fame and everything, he's still a very to himself person. And so I would imagine that opening himself up again to sort of that really negative, because let's be honest, the Star Wars community could be very toxic sometimes. Oh my god,
any fandom can be toxic, and it's one of the biggest fandoms in the world. So obviously,
it is. Here's the thing: is you mostly hear negative stuff. We all know we're gonna watch it and everything, but everybody will still complain all the same. But I mean, sometimes with merit, sometimes not, in my opinion. But whatever. But yeah, I would see him not wanting him to open himself up to that again, knowing that that's always a possibility when you touch the franchise. That's just you're going to open up yourself up to mass scrutiny.
And it's just kind of another fact. I feel he kind of it's not necessarily flash in the pan because he's a talented director in his own right, but also he's a bit of a peculiar director who has a little more of a French study of film and all those kind of aspects, where he wants to make his own kind of more experimental and artistic items that don't have necessarily that same mainstream appeal in the same way.
Here's what's really funny, and I'll throw in a little fact because it just kind of fits in with the conversation. So there was actually a lot of butting heads between George Lucas and his director of photography, Gilbert Taylor. Because Gilbert Taylor was trying to be the director of photography, but because George Lucas came up from small sets, he's involved in everything. He would constantly try to strong arm his way into stepping on
everyone else's toes.
And so it would be to the point where he would Taylor would have everything, all the lights and everything set up on the set. He's like, all right, cool. And then George Lucas would come and start changing lights. And he's like, what are you doing? Like, this is my set. You tell me what you want and I'll do it, but don't touch my set. Yeah. And so there's a lot of butting heads there. And that came from sort of this very traditional, very hands-on background that George Lucas had, especially because it was a lot of smaller films where he had to be more direct. Yeah. Now he's involved in this bigger project. He ended up stepping on some toes.
Yeah. He had a bit of difficulty in like going from like solo ventures of creating film to working as a team on a large project, which is difficult for any kind of project, especially movie making. And he kind of struggled with that a little bit. But I think we're like very focused on like the man behind the movie and less of the movie itself at this point.
So now we're music, obviously, by John Williams.
He was actually recommended. Steven Spielberg actually recommended him to George Lucas for this movie.
Oh, nice! Didn't know that.
Steven Spielberg made an excellent suggestion. John Williams, a legend. Even without Star Wars,
nobody will ever be able to match what he has done for the movie industry as far as musical scores.
Man.
Never.
Or just like musical scores, like like music in general. His musical, just few people can match
what he's done for
cinema scores especially. But even in like just the music of all of music, John Williams has a star on that.
I think he could have his own podcast one of these days that we do it on. So
podcast series.
This was produced by executive producer was George Lucas, and then you had the most hands-on producer, which was Gary Kuntz, and then the 1997 special had an additional producer, which was Rick McCallum. Then we had the cinematographer, as previously mentioned, Gilbert Taylor. And then, sorry, I got all my notes jumbled up here.
We'll get them all.
Don't worry, there's a whole bunch of jumbled notes here.
Star Wars is a mountain. If you thought Jurassic Park was big, don't worry. Star Wars is bigger.
So I'm only going to mention a couple because there's so many. So everybody has to realize when it comes to sort of the technical specs of this movie that there were multiple releases for it. There was obviously the original, then there was the remake, then there was the remaster, and then there was the additional releases as technology changed. The movie was constantly touched up to keep up with technology. So we have everything from a 70 millimeter 6-track all the way to mono 35 millimeter prints to 16 millimeter prints. It's all over the place as far as sound mix goes. And that's the same thing with their aspect ratio. There are so many different aspect ratios. We got like 2.2 by 1, 70 millimeter prints, 2.35 by 1 theatrical ratio, and so much more. I can probably go all day naming numbers that don't mean anything to some people.
It's also incredibly impressive that through all these transitions, it still has at least retained a amount of quality where it still is a very good film today. Versus like there's some kind of projects like that where you try and bring them up to date or bring in new technology on top of them, and it just like ends up kind of spoiling the whole project.
Oh yeah.
But even after some of the more infamous additions to Star Wars, it still is an incredible movie. So it's a good, a commendation to the teams that supervised making those updates over the past few decades.
Exactly.
So really impressive stuff there.
So this was done in Technicolor. We have Laboratory. So this was edited in a couple different places. It was Deluxe Hollywood for the USA prints, and then we also have Technicolor Hollywood also in the US. The film length is 3,300 meters, Sweden, and then once again there's a bunch of different film lengths depending on what edition we're looking at. I'm not going to go through all the numbers. There's a lot.
It is a varied movie in so many ways.
Exactly.
That's another thing. Like you could make 100 different cuts of this movie now based off like all the editions you had and all the editions. Like you can splice them up in 100 different ways, and that fans have taken that and done it for, and it's comes of interesting success and failures. I've really appreciated it.
But with all the technical stuff, I think the biggest highlight of this movie is, and obviously we'll get into it deeper, but the special effects that this movie brought. A lot of amazing practical effects that they had to invent more or less because special effects really weren't to where he wanted it to be to do what he wanted to do. He wanted to make this big sci-fi setting, but also the technology wasn't there to produce what he needed.
Yeah.
And so he created Industrial Light and Magic. And once he opened that up, this was they opened up in it was founded in May 26, 1975. So 2 years before.
Yeah.
So then that's where they did a lot of their practical effects, their special effects. And I actually have a clip with an interview with George Lucas that I really wanted to put in because I think it's better in his own words how he explains sort of that journey of creating ILM and what it meant to him and what it meant to the movie and what it's meant for special effects in general as far as movies go.
Yeah, they took the first steps in so many avenues of special effects that we still even see today and use today.
Absolutely, and ILM still operates today, and they're huge.
Still
now.
incredible.
They work on so many different movies. So yeah, here's that clip right now.
Well, as I say, when I was up here in San Francisco, we had no mixing facilities up here. We had no editing facilities up here. So I had to create, Zoetrope basically was an editing mixing facility. When it got sort of kiboshed in the what we call the Black Tuesday massacre of all our scripts and THX and everything, and we were thrown to the winds, I realized I was going to have to start my own, buy my own editing equipment, and eventually build my own little mixing studio so that I could make my movies. The idea up here was that we didn't build sound stages. We went and shot anywhere in the world. We wanted to shoot the movie, and then we'd come back here and finish them. So we'd write them here and finish them here, but we'd actually make them somewhere else in the world. So I needed a facility to do that, which is really where Skywalker Ranch came from. Originally, it was a little house in San Anselmo. And then after Star Wars, we outgrew that, and I built this place. The thing about visual effects is when I did Star Wars, I had an idea of doing this crazy 1930s serial action-adventure film, and the idea was it would be very, very fast-paced and very exciting. The problem was there really were no special effects facilities at that time. Doug Trumbull had the closest thing to a special effects facility, but he was trying to be a director and direct features, and he'd retired from the special effects business at that point. So I went to a few of the people that had worked for him that were doing sort of industrial films for the planetariums, or people that were doing Pillsbury Doughboy commercials and that sort of thing, and then a lot of college kids, because they're just, apart from an occasional map painter at Disney or doing Bond films, there really wasn't any industry. None of the studios had special effects departments anymore. They'd all been abandoned. So I was sort of forced to start my own company in order to make the movie. And that's really how ILM got started in the first place. And I knew that I wanted something that was going to sort of, I had to push the limits of the technology of the film medium in order to make this movie work. Because I couldn't have just spaceships slowly moving through the frame. I wanted to be able to pan with them, move with them. To get that vocabulary added to my lexicon, I needed to invent some new technology, which is what we did at ILM. We were able to create motion control cameras that locked the foregrounds and the backgrounds together, so I could have much more freedom of movement. In that case, I was able to then have shorter shots and have a much more kinetic visual style to the film. And since I was making 3 of these, I kept ILM going through all 3 films, and eventually we took on outside projects to pay for the people that worked there in between the times I was making my movies, and it turned eventually into a big company.
All right, so that was a little interview clip that I wanted to put in, because once again, I think when it comes to ILM, it was something that George Lucas created, and as you heard, it meant a lot to him in the project. And from there, we can finally move on to my favorite part, the awards.
Well, that sounded a little flat. It sounded like you were clapping in space over there.
I was excited, Jimbo. Don't be a negative Nancy.
Now, there are a lot of awards, and we have a lot to cover. So in lieu of the massive amount of information we're getting through, I'm just going to go over some of the major awards. But I will mention that this movie, between 1977 and 2012, looking at 58 awards, winning awards, and 29 nominations. Just, that's
ridiculous.
A lot. That is a lot. I mean, we've done some movies with 2.
We've done some movies with none. I do
Done
believe
some movies with none, and we've done like movies that are good movies with only like 12. 12 is a lot, but this raking in 20 or 58, and it's insane. Anyway, Academy Awards USA 1978. They won Best Art Direction and Set Decoration, and I will name some of these names because they're worth mentioning. Because they worked hard and they earned the win for sure. So when we're looking at Best Art Direction, we got John Barry, Norman Reynolds, Leslie Dilley, and Roger Christen. We got Best Costume Design by John Molo, and my gosh, the costume design. Like, it's all iconic to this day.
Well, what do you mean? It was just a bunch of togas. Here's Princess Leia.
That's all Hollywood is.
Put a brooch on it. Oh, it's a toga. Hey, here's Luke Skywalker. Let's put a belt around him. It's a toga.
He's a toga.
That's always what's been great is they just took what they had and they just tweaked it slightly to make it look more,
One thing that I always thought was something that played on their costumes is you always knew the good guy from the bad guy because it was light and dark.
Oh, yeah.
And I thought that was very cool because, like Princess Leia, Luke, even like Han's undershirt was all wearing white.
Yep.
And then you had Darth Vader was wearing black. All his officers wearing black. TIE fighter pilots wearing black.
It's the whole like cowboys and bandits, classic Hollywood stuff. It's like dress people in white for good, just people in black for bad. And that's incredible.
Right?
It's just intelligent filmmaking. Really quick way of saying like this is good, this is bad. Go
Good,
for it.
bad.
Simplistic morality. Let's not put the gray on here.
We got Best Sound. So we got Don McDougal, Ray West, Bob Milker, Derek Ball, and unfortunately Derek Ball wasn't present at the awards ceremony, but he is definitely part of the crew that created a lot of the sounds.
He absolutely contributed.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we got a participation award.
Yeah, the participation award. Yeah, exactly.
Best
Feel bad for Derek Ball now.
They won Best Film Editing. Paul Hershish, Marisha Lucas, Richard Chu. We got Best Effects.
Chewy.
So Best Effects, visual effects. John Steers, John Diskra. Wow, I knew I was going to butcher that.
Oh, we Terence something. There would be a birthday episode without a Terence.
Richard Eldlund, Grant McCure, and Robert Balalak.
Isn't that a bad guy in Mortal Kombat?
Best Music Original Score, obviously, John Williams. They won Special Achievement Award, Ben Burnt, for special sound effects for the creation of the alien, creature, and robot voices. Which is really interesting because particularly like Chewie was used, with various amount of animal sounds and stuff like that. So they really
we'll get to all that here in a little bit.
Oh, yeah. And then they were nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor in a Supporting Role, Best Director, and Best Writing Screenplay directly for the screen. It's nominations, so I usually don't dip into the details. Golden Globes USA 1978. They won the Golden Globe for Best Original Score, Motion Picture, John Williams. They were nominated for Best Motion Picture Drama, Best Director Motion Picture, and Best Actor in a Supporting Role, Motion Picture. Then we have the...
Moving on.
Nothing to see here. Nothing to see.
1979. They won the Anthony Asquith Award for Film Music, John Williams. Winner for BAFTA Film Award for Best Sound. Then they were nominated for the BAFTA Film Award, Best Costume Design, Best Film Editing, and Best Production Design and Art Direction.
Best toga design.
Academy Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films, USA 1978. A lot of winnings here. We got Best Supporting Actor, Alec Guinness. Best Director, George Lucas.
Did you say Guinness's? Is that Guinness's World Book of Records? Alec Guinness.
Alec Guinness.
My Guinness is Alec Guinness. It's a great party time.
Beer on the mind. It's not my fault. Best Director, George Lucas, tied with Steven Spielberg for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Best Writing, George Lucas. Best Music, John Williams. also tied with himself, John Williams, for Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Can you imagine? I'd like to thank John Williams for this great, participation contest. Yeah, and I'd like to thank you, John Williams.
I feel like in the history of this podcast, there's always like once a month where you see awards where like the person that year was competing with themselves once or twice.
Well, but usually, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's amazing to think. We're just like, I was like, well, you had one legend. He made 3 films that year, and so I was like, well, obviously, like we're choosing one of his 3. That's just how it goes. I'm sorry.
We got Best Costumes, John Molo. Best Makeup, Rick Baker. Stuart Freeborn. Best Special Effects, John Diskra, that name I cannot say, and John Steers. Outstanding Editing, Paul Hershish, Mika Lucas, and Richard Chu. Outstanding Sound, Ben Burt, Don McDougall, and Sam F. Shaw. Outstanding Art Direction, Norman Reynolds and Leslie Dilley. Outstanding Set Direction, Roger Christensen. And then we have winner for special award, Outstanding Cinematographer, Gilbert Taylor. Nominated for Best Actor, Harrison Ford, and Best Actor, Mark Hamill. And Best Actress, Carrie Fisher, and Best Supporting Actor, Peter Cushing.
Dracula.
And that's all for the awards. Whew. I'm winded, and that's not even the beginning.
And I don't even think. Don't you still have some other stuff in there on the filming aspects?
I do.
Of it
I was going to sprinkle it in. With
you want to sprinkle? Yeah, you want to be like the sprinkle. You want to be the sprinkles on top of the ice cream.
Easy, Jimbo. The man needs to breathe.
Well, obviously, this is episode 1, Terence. Episode 2 would be Kyle, and part 3 would be Jimbo.
Return to the Jimbo.
Return to the Jimbo.
Like Game of Thrones chapters, just one character from another.
And part 2 would be called The Millennial Strikes Back.
Part 3, Return to the Jedi Jimbo.
So we've given the honor of the cast from now on to the millennial Terrence, or not Terrence. Well, Terrence is a millennial too. He's just an elder
but
millennial.
Not the millennial. That's what
the baby millennial. We've given the cast to Kyle from now on to help alleviate some of the research. He does a really good job. So, Kyle, why don't you go ahead and take away the cast? Don't build you up like that just to let you fall.
Don't build me up. He's going to do the best job ever. And then he's like, anyways, Mark Hamill.
And you're fired.
All right. Starting for the cast of Star Wars, A New Hope, Episode 4 or 1, 2.5. Who knows at this point? It'll change in 5 years. Don't quote me on that. Disney Plus, you'll take it away. Right, so starting with the cast here, we of course have Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. Mark Hamill, of course, best known for his role as Luke Skywalker. It's his most iconic role, but a close follow-up to that would be his role as the main voice of the Joker in the Batman animated series and many of the Batman animated movies even.
He's a phenomenal voice actor. Oh, man.
I would say I prefer him more as a voice actor than I prefer him honestly. Also, recent voice actor work. He was Chucky in the recent Child's Play movie.
That's true.
Also, he did a guest appearance on What We Do in the Shadows, one of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
He did an episode. It was really good. Yeah, a really great show. So he's still doing acting jobs right now and really doing a great job of it. So he's having a fun time.
Enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah. He's just guy's clearly in his golden years of just like I did the biggest thing in the world. I'm just gonna play around now.
Pretty much.
I appreciate that and love it. So Mark Hamill, great guy from all counts. Next up, we have another great actor, Harrison Ford.
One of my personal favorite actors of all time.
He doesn't care about anything.
I think that's more of a persona he keeps up, in my personal opinion. But
he has helped rescue a lot of people by flying his own aircraft in to rescue people and stuff like that.
For sure. No, I'm saying when I say that, I mean he doesn't care about movies.
Oh no.
Yeah. He definitely views the
like it's just a job to him, and I find that fascinating because he's such an amazing actor who's so disconnected.
Wasn't it The Fugitive? Wasn't it The Fugitive that we did? And he was like, I haven't even watched it.
Yeah, he hasn't watched.
He could not care less about the movies he creates. He's
give him that paycheck. Let him go.
The man is a worker first and foremost. Yeah, the man he puts in the time, he gets the job done, and he doesn't care about the art.
And he goes home and forgets about it.
He cares about his performance, but he doesn't he's not like a connoisseur of the art himself and cares about the films in that way. At least
nor
from how
does he
presents
hold
himself.
Any connection in any way.
Exactly.
It's made that clear.
And you know what? All more power to him. It's endearing in its own blown away, and I love him to death. But of course, Harrison Ford, perhaps best known for his role of Han Solo, but secondly, and probably more importantly, as Indiana Jones. Of course,
two of the greatest characters of film history, right there.
Yeah, and two of the best movies ever made, and a few other ones.
And not only that, but directed by Steven Spielberg and George Lucas.
George Lucas, along with
he was in American Graffiti, Witness.
Yeah, Deckard Caden, Blade Runner, American Graffiti, The Fugitive, Witness. All around, just amazing actor who is always a delight to see in any movie you watch.
He's even in Apocalypse Now.
Yes.
I just noticed that when I was watching it yesterday. I was like, wait a minute.
It's not even like a thing you notice.
Right.
He's not even like in a big role. He's just kind of there.
A serious role. And I was like, is that? I had to look close. He was wearing glasses.
It's not like a Harrison Ford.
It is Han Solo.
It's just like he's just there. Yeah, he's wearing glasses. He's just doing kind of like, I think it's like kind of like a.
But we'll get to that here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. I don't know if we did announce that. Anyways, next up we have the legendary and late Carrie Fisher, best known definitely for her role in Princess Leia and all the best Star Wars films, and she also started movies like The Blues Brothers and The Burbs, and also was known for doing a lot of great script work for the most of her career. When she wasn't acting, she was known for
she had a master class in sass, and oh man, it made her so endearing and just such a joy to watch in like interviews and everything. That like,
but
she definitely had a rough journey.
Something about Carrie Fisher is Celebration 2. I think it was 2. I went to 2 and 3. They were both in downtown Indianapolis, and this was before the episode 2 came out or episode 3. And I went down there and I stood in line down at the back at the RCA Dome, Hoosier Dome, where the Colts used to play for 8.5 hours just to get a chance to get Carrie Fisher's autograph, which I have. But she said she would stay there and sign everybody that was in line up to a certain point. She would sign everybody's thing, but she was like a chain smoker, dude. Like she always had to step outside, and she was.
Well, she's been very open. I believe
about her addictions.
I forgot what it's called, and I wish I remembered so we can plug it in. But she wrote a book. And she talked about a lot of those things. She talked about like her addictions to multiple things. She talks about sort of like her journey in the film industry, some of her hardships that she had to go through and overcome, and like where she ended up was definitely not without struggle. But before she unfortunately passed away, she hit a point to which she was comfortable, and she was over a lot of the things that were sort of plaguing her.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm just gonna look at her. I just like did a quick cursory search to see what book she's written. Like there's Carrie Fisher wrote Wishful Drinking, Shockaholic, The Best Awful There Is, and a bunch of other few books.
Didn't she do one called like The Princess Diaries or?
Yes, the Princess Diaries.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, great. And that's a thing where it's just like.
And I've heard excerpts from all of them. I've been meaning to get to those books. They sound all like just a really good time to read.
Yeah, and it's just like Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford. I do think them as like actors first and foremost. Carrie Fisher though I see as a personally heroic in my own way of her struggles of addiction, how she overcame those things and led her best and tried to lead her best life possible despite her struggles. I consider her heroic in that portion. But first and foremost, I think of her as a great writer, you said the master of sass and all those kind of things. Like she is an incredible person in that right of just kind of an unspoken hero in Hollywood in many respects, just for how many like movies she actually had a hand in, but later was like uncredited for and stuff like that. Where it's just incredible deep story stuff. So like the more I can talk about her on the podcast, the better, and the more you can read about her by yourself, the better, because she has a fascinating, interesting life, and love her to death, and miss her to this day.
Yep.
Now, next up, we're moving on to actors who were, frankly, legends even at the time of filming Star Wars. These are the actors who were critical thespians who were built to like give the movie credibility. First off, here we got Peter Cushing as Grand Moff Tarkin. He's of course the original Dracula. Not the original.
Yeah, I was gonna say we know we'd have some fighting words right here, man. That was Bela Lugosi.
Bela Lugosi.
Even Terence was like getting ready to come out of his chair like,
I didn't mean millennials. I consider Peter Cushing the most iconic Dracula in my opinion. That's who I prefer when I think of Dracula. I think of Peter Cushing. I think he's a great actor. And many other roles like that, Return of Frankenstein, The Curse of Dracula, and all those kind of things were just like fantastic actor, love him to death. And even when they did his digital resurrection in Rogue One, I appreciated him.
Which wasn't really him, but
it wasn't really him. But also, it was nice to see his character come alive again.
At least his appearance.
Yeah, his image.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see like his place in history as being like the start of the digital reconstruction of actors, which has its own detailed discussions to be had in the near future. Next up, we have probably the most famous actor of the time of the movie releasing, Alec Guinness, as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was, of course, known for he's in Lawrence of Arabia, Bridge of River Kwai, River Kwai. I can't pronounce the word properly.
Murder by Death.
Yeah, Murder by Death. Oliver Twist.
I just watched Murder by Death the other day, and he plays a blind butler. Yeah, and it's kind of along the lines side of Clue. He's pretty funny in it.
Yeah, so he's just an incredible actor. He kind of didn't understand the film at all, but still, like he knew the language and gravitas to lend to the work, and is a great actor. And overall, had a great long career. So love him to death. Great actor. Watch more stuff. Next up, we have Anthony Daniels as C-3PO. Anthony Daniels doesn't do much acting outside of Star Wars, actually, but he has appeared as himself. He has appeared as C-3PO, and I believe every Star Wars movie up to this point still.
He's like,
I believe every Star Wars film. But I believe like C-3PO and R2-D2 are like the two characters who appeared in each Star Wars film, I believe. And and Anthony Daniels is the only actor who appeared in all of the films thus far. I believe that still holds true now. Actually, he may not have been in Han Solo. The Solo movie, I'm not sure.
The 3PO and R2-D2 weren't in that movie.
Yeah, so that did fall through.
But the major movies.
C-3PO has been in every single one, and it has been Anthony Daniels portraying him. And, so he's a great part of Star Wars legacy in his own right. Next up, we have Kenny Baker as R2-D2. Good actor. Doesn't really appear in anything else. Largely just played R2-D2 in a few movies, and a great actor in his own right. Next up, we have Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca, the 200-year-old Wookiee. He performed that role in multiple films, and even came back for Force Awakens, and that was one of his final roles he played for his late passing. Next up, we have the actor, but not voice of Darth Vader, David Prose. And then we have the voice by the legendary James Earl Jones, still acting today, doing great stuff. You'll know him from, of course, movies like Lion King and Come to America, and most importantly, as the voice of Darth Vader. And so that makes up the casting list. Other actors, actually including the two, was like Phil Brown, Shayla Frailer as like Luke's uncles and aunt, and plays that. And so a nice all-around cast, but those are the major roles that are worth noting in this podcast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, there you had it. Kyle Zahner with the cast.
Yes.
Now, buckle your seatbelts, because we are getting ready to dive into some of the history, the lore, things in this movie, some stuff I didn't even know about, some facts. So this is probably going to go into at least a second part, if not a third part. So because Terence likes to go down these little rabbit holes at times, and we'll be talking on one subject for.
I love my rabbit holes.
Yeah, realize we've been here all day. It's like we didn't say anything.
And so here we go.
So we're just gonna because we all have little facts, and so we round robin it, or
just
mounds of information.
Yeah, I'll just talk for a little bit. Then once I'll just point to you or Kyle, or if
once you get tired with their stack.
Well, I'm saying, man, there's probably 60 pages.
Guys got a book.
When one of us runs out of breath, we'll pick up slack. We'll pass the baton.
All right, so here we go. George Lucas was so sure this movie would flop that instead of attending the premiere, he went on vacation to Hawaii with Steven Spielberg when they came up with the idea for Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark after they found out Star Wars became a success.
I actually have a fact to add that too. 20th Century Fox was equipped with Bob as well, that they spent most of their marketing that year on the movie Damnation Alley in 1977 instead of the movie. Who remembers Damnation Alley? Oh, right. Nobody.
I don't even think I've heard of it.
Podcast coming up soon.
Funny enough, I also have a little tidbit on it.
The same thing. Okay. I was surprised. That was my first.
Not only that, I have a tidbit on Terence's tidbit. We're just going to call this Tiddlywinks.
But wait, there's more.
Shit, wow.
So as we discussed before, nobody took it seriously. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to find. I should have labeled these. So
it's about the journey.
exactly. So nobody took this. There it is.
We found it.
I found it. So as we were saying before, so nobody took this seriously, including the crew. As a matter of fact, most of the time, the crew considered this to be a childish film or a children's film. So they rarely took really anything seriously, and they found it unintentionally humorous as they were filming, all the way to the fact that actors confessed that they thought the film would be a failure. Harrison Ford even found it strange that, quote unquote, there was a princess with weird buns in her hair.
Probably still finds it weird to this day.
Yeah, and he constantly called Chewie a giant monkey in a suit.
Yeah, and that's another aspect I think we'll get later to in the podcast as well. It's like this wasn't a film that I felt like was either like cynically made or that anyone knew that it was going to be big. Everyone kind of came at it like through a sincere want to just kind of make a good enough film or entertaining enough film, and ended up just like hitting the nail on the head of exactly what everyone in America wanted that year and didn't know about.
Well, not only that, but you got to remember Alec Guinness was a famous actor by this point. He's done a lot in his career, and we'll get to. I got some stuff in the notes about how he perceived, because it was like, I think it was Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford said that they would goof off on the set, but when he came around, they had to straighten up because he didn't take no nonsense from him. So, but I got a lot more about Alec Guinness in here about why he didn't really care for these movies. So we'll get to that here in a little bit.
It'd be interesting to see, like, if Alec Guinness was alive today, what he would think. Well,
I know, right?
I know he would be looking at his paychecks.
Yeah. He'd get his paychecks, but also like what he would think of the film industry today would be so drastically different from what he thought it would be.
So here we go. George Lucas' decision to accept a lower salary on the movie in exchange for full merchandising rights was considered a fool's gamble on his part. Toys based on movies had never been major money earners because of the long gap between them when a movie would go through its theatrical run and when any products based on it would be available. This movie, however, was such a phenomenon that it reached the holiday 1977 sales period in full swing and changed the way movies were merchandised forever.
And how the rights are given, like now, like no movie made today can like the rights go to like a director or something like that. Like last case, remember like. The latest case, remember, was like George R.R. Martin with the Game of Thrones series. Like, there's some aspects of like, he already signed away the deals to like merchandise for like beer and stuff like that. They had to
I remember something else about like
smartest business movie for sure.
Was it Snakes on a Plane, where that thing had sold the most merchandise or whatever before a movie had been released?
Yeah, because the title's perfect. Right. you buy it for the title. You don't buy it for anything else.
Right. The actors found George Lucas to be very uncommunicative towards them, with his only directions generally being either faster or more intense.
Yeah.
At one point, when he temporarily lost his voice, the crew provided him with a board with just those two phrases written on it.
Yep.
I feel like that's Jimbo's advice a lot of times too.
Well, that comes into play where that comes into,
Kyle.
More intense.
So that actually comes into play to like sort of his demeanor and how he sort of was as a person, which is, he's very to himself and all that. So when it came to directing, it was the whole style of it being this huge production. It was very new and sort of removed from what he's done.
You got to remember, he's probably under a lot of pressure too, because those like THX or whatever, those were smaller budgeted movies. Here you are, you're messing with millions of dollars right now. You know what I mean? You probably got those executives and studio people breathing down your neck.
Exactly. I breathe down his neck. Plus, he's not like he has films under his experience, but he still hasn't he hasn't made anything to this scale, and he isn't like that experienced.
So here's where I can actually interject this bit. So
go for it.
The movie didn't do well for him as far as like health wise. Like during production,
I thought he had a heart attack, did he?
Yeah. So the cast would constantly try to perk him up. They tried to make him laugh and smile because he was often just visually depressed. At one point, the project became so demanding that he was diagnosed with hypertension and exhaustion and was warned to reduce his stress level. The post-production was also equally as stressful on him, and this was due to 20th Century Fox just breathing down his neck, telling him to get it done, all that stuff. And it didn't help that when Mark Hamill got in a car accident and his face was once his face got visibly scarred, that restricted their reshoots.
So there was a lot of things that he
Right.
couldn't do reshooting wise because of that car accident.
Wasn't the reshooting stuff done? Empire Strikes Back, I believe so. His motorcycle accident. Because I believe they had to like remake him as like a Ken doll, basically, when they did that. So that wasn't in the original film.
This was a different accident, I believe.
Oh, okay. So Mark Hamill had a lot of bad luck. George Lucas had a lot of bad luck. But somehow they made one of the greatest films of the century.
The skeleton that C-3PO passes belongs to a Tatooine creature called a Greater Crate Dragon. This artificial skeleton was left in the Tunisian desert after filming and is still there. During filming of Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones in 2002, this site was visited by a crew once more, and the skeleton was still there. In The Mandalorian, Chapter 9, The Marshal, locals on Tatooine join with Sand People to fight and kill one of those serpents. So that was pretty cool to see.
One of the best episodes in that whole series, right?
Road trip. We're going to Tunisia to see the creature.
Exactly.
In early drafts of the script, R2-D2 could speak standard English, and he had a rather foul vocabulary. Although all of R2-D2's English speech was removed, many of C-3PO's reactions to it were left in. So they play off each other so well.
They really do.
The scene. By the way, we're jumping all over this movie, and I'm sure almost everybody has seen this movie. So just for the record, we're going to be all over the place because there was no way to categorize these notes.
Oh yeah,
there's so much here.
We're just shooting it all out, having fun.
The scene of Darth Vader's TIE fighter spinning out of control was added late in the movie at the insistence of George Lucas.
Also, the name for the TIE fighter was made just because it looked like a bow tie by George Lucas himself.
And do you know what TIE stands for?
What does TIE stand for, Jimbo?
Twin Ion Engines.
Ooh.
I think that's what it is. It's in the notes somewhere.
It sounds right.
At least I made it sound
I will
good, right?
believe you blindly about that.
Right?
Other members of this movie crew were opposed to including this shot, feeling that it set up a sequel. At that time, sequels were generally regarded as inferior cash-in movies. Well, this guy cashed in for years.
Definitely a cash-in, but not inferior.
No, but Lucas insisted upon its inclusion nonetheless. According to Harrison Ford, during the making of this movie, here it is, where he and Mark Hamill would fool around and not commit to the work whenever Sir Alec Guinness was on set. So when he said when he was there, they became really professional. He was on the,
Yeah.
James Earl Jones, who voiced Darth Vader, and David Prowse, who played Darth Vader, never met.
David Prowse, I don't believe he was even aware that James Earl Jones was voicing his
he didn't know until post-production.
Yeah.
He was mad. We'll get to that here in a little bit.
So, also, interesting fact about the one previous to that. Which one was that?
About the acting professional behavior?
Oh, yeah. So funny enough, that's how people act with Harrison Ford now when they're on set. That happened with Blade Runner. It was, once Harrison Ford's on set. He was kind of like the main sort of
the
mentor. Yeah, exactly. Like people looked. He's been in the industry so long, done so many iconic roles. That particularly Ryan Gosling really looked to him to for a lot of advice and stuff like that.
While George was filming on location in Tunisia, the Libyan government became concerned about a massive military vehicle parked near the Libyan border. Consequently, the Tunisian government, receiving threats of military mobilization, politely asked Lucas to move the Jawa Sandcrawler farther away from their border.
If you had no idea what that was, that'd be very intimidating.
It was, but I never knew it was a big thing. I thought maybe it was just a little thing, but it was actually
a small set. But
right.
No, they built a giant thing.
There's a couple things they really did go all out. There's also a handful of things that were miniatures. Actually,
I wonder if they still went full all out for movies even Mandalorian or Rogue One or something like that, where they actually use those giant vehicles. I wonder if they repurpose some of their own stuff.
I mean, there's a lot of things that they've built for practical effects.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a mainstay of the Star Wars franchise now because of the original movies. Like practical effects be used commonly even now,
right?
Which is great.
And they have the budget.
Do you know the famous scene in this movie where Luke Skywalker and Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, they do that thing where they throw the grappling hook, I call it, or whatever, rope around, and they do that famous swing over the thing.
Mm-hmm.
They did that themselves, and they did it in one take.
Oh, nice.
No stunt doubles were used. I thought that was crazy. Harrison Ford didn't learn his lines for the intercom conversation of the cell block so that it would sound spontaneous. When he's like, "Oh yeah, everything's fine here."
How are you?
How are you?
Everything's fine.
I love that scene.
Definitely,
I did too. The lightsaber sound effect is a combination of the hum of an idling 35mm movie projector and the feedback generated by passing a stripped microphone cable by a television. The things they come up with for sound effects, you know what I mean? It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's a den of insane creativity because like who even discovers this noise?
Here's the thing: it's like it's usually just culminated together with like A, massive amounts of imagination, and then B, just kind of using what you have around you to be like, let's see what sounds we can make, or like you have an idea of what sound you want, and you just try to think of different things that might create that sound, and then make a mixture of things that get as close as you can.
Right.
And, a lot of people who create sound for movies, games, all kinds of stuff, they still do that to this day. It's a whole art.
Yes.
So George, before this film was released, George showed a rough cut to a group of his friends. A lot of the spacings and all that was still stock footage of old World War II films because he hadn't made them yet.
Yeah, made them himself.
So he went around the room afterwards and says, what'd you think of it? So most people in the room was like, what were you thinking? Brian De Palma reportedly called it the worst movie ever. I mean, that's saying something now.
Don't hold back. Just let me know your feelings.
They said everyone, even Lucas, felt that this movie was going to be the biggest flop of all time. There was only one person that stood up and said it's going to be the biggest movie of all time and make millions of dollars. Do you know who that person was?
Yeah.
Who was that person?
Steven Spielberg.
Steven Spielberg. He believed in his
and
friend.
they all looked up at him because they all looked up to him and said, "Poor Steven."
The ultimate bro, Steven Spielberg.
He's drank the Kool-Aid.
The ultimate wingman.
The name Wookiee
later became the lead.
The name Wookiee came about as a result of an accident. When San Francisco DJ Terence McGovern was doing voiceover work on THX 1138 in 1971 for George Lucas, he made a blunder and exclaimed, "I think I ran over a Wookiee back there." George Lucas, confused, asked what he meant by the term. Terence was like, I have no idea. So maybe it's just the name Terrence. I don't know what they're talking about.
Terrence and words. It's just like you name your kid Terrence and their tongue just twisting and nodding.
But
never gets out of it.
But George Lucas never forgot that moment and incorporated it into this movie, which is awesome.
It's great.
Mark Hamill held his breath for so long during the trash compactor scene that he broke a blood vessel in his face.
Oh, jeez.
Subsequent shots are shown from only one side only. Can you imagine? He held his breath for a long time.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about Carrie Fisher. Due to the limited budget, the American cast members and crew, including George Lucas, all decided to fly coach class to England rather than first class. But when famous actress Debbie Reynolds, who was Carrie Fisher's mother, heard that her daughter would be flying coach, she called Lucas and complaining about how insulting it was for her daughter to be flying coach. Fisher was in the room with Lucas when he took the call, and after a few minutes asked if she could talk to her mother. When Lucas handed her the phone, she simply said, "Mother, I want to fly coach. Will you F off?" And hung up the phone.
Classic Carrie Fisher.
That's classic.
Even from the beginning, not an act. She's legit the real deal.
This was the first movie to make over $300 million domestic box office. It was also the first movie to cross $500 million worldwide in its initial release. Mm-hmm. I mean, I wonder what all these people that didn't think it was going to do at the movie
They all ate their words.
And I wonder what Lucas is thinking. Like, I'm on to something. I wonder the exact moment he was like, I got something here.
Right?
I don't know how big it's going to be, but it's big.
I think at that moment he's like, oh no, I have to make more.
But he didn't have to.
No, he didn't.
But
at the same time, though, he had to. Yeah,
you make something called episode 4, you're at least going to make something
I think
else.
that's something like, I don't think you can understand that over the course of your entire life. I bet George Lucas is still trying to comprehend, like, why was this the biggest thing in the world for me?
I think he's still trying to figure out what his original 1 through 3 was.
Yeah, exactly. What would I have done if it was just like a moderate success and I just had my own creative rights to do what I wanted with it versus like what I had to do eventually make the biggest thing in the world and sell Ewok toys.
On the first day of filming in the deserts of Tunisia, the country experienced its first major rainstorm in 50 years.
Yeah.
What luck.
Yeah. Oh, here you go. Now, we all know Lucas and Spielberg were really good friends, so Lucas visited the Close Encounters of the Third Kind set in 1977 because Lucas was sure this movie would outperform the yet-to-be-released Star Wars at the box office. Spielberg was like, no, I disagree. Yours is going to be a bigger hit. So, and the idea of getting a compensation if Star Wars was a box office bomb, Lucas proposed a gentleman's pact as they were close friends from the university, trading 2.5% of the profit on each other's movies. Spielberg accepted the deal, And he still receives 2.5% of the profits from this movie, as Lucas receives the same from Close Encounters.
That's great.
So let's just say, how much was that he just made off 2.5%?
Best bet ever made.
I was like, it's just because he's your friend, you know what I mean? But Lucas is like, man, I need to get something out of this. You know, I spent all this time and money, and I might as well get something out of this.
Always, just it's the company you keep. Make friends with rich people, folks. Just selfishly do that.
Well, Kyle, there's the door. All right,
I better get out of here.
The 20th Century Fox attempted to distribute this movie in the U.S. Fewer than 40 theaters would agree to show it. As a solution, Fox threatened that any cinema that refused to show this movie would not be given the rights to screen the potential blockbuster The Other Side of Midnight from 1977, which has ended up grossing less than 10% of what this movie did.
That's awesome. This is a fun little fact. The body count for this PG-rated film, when including the deaths in Alderaan and the Death Star, is 2,795,192 deaths.
Because they blew up the entire
rated PG for parental guidance.
That's great.
Dennis Lawson, who played Wedge Antilles, is the uncle of Ewan McGregor, who plays Obi-Wan in the prequels. Poor R2. Kenny Baker said that often when the cast and crew broke for lunch, they would forget he was in the R2 outfit, leave him in there.
There's actually a lot
Just
of...
shows how convincing the costume was.
So there's a lot of issues with, sort of the comfortability in costumes in this movie, everywhere from, R2 not being able to get out. C-3PO's outfit would constantly, particularly when they were in the Tunisian desert, it was very hard for Anthony Daniels to operate.
Move in.
Yep, exactly. So basically his left leg piece kept shattering down, and the plastic covering in his left foot kept stabbing him.
Yeah, every step he took, yeah.
Yeah, so there was a lot, he couldn't see through the eyes, which were covered with gold to prevent corrosion. Kenny Baker, I have a quote from him saying, "I was incredibly grateful each time it would, the R2 would actually work, and several times they had to give everybody Gatorade to keep them hydrated, and especially with the Ewok scene."
There's no Ewoks in this movie.
The Jawas. I meant the Jawas.
Jawas, yeah.
The Jawas in particular, also very hot in those costumes.
Right. Yeah, and that's also like an historical thing of all Hollywood movies. It's gotten better as we've progressively made better materials and as work standards have improved in Hollywood, that just like the costumes from like the 60s, 70s, or 80s even is like absolutely miserable to wear, versus like right now, like it could still definitely be a challenge, but usually isn't like as dire as you hear about the original days of Star Wars or C-3PO. Just so
right. Carrie Fisher found Peter Cushing to be very charming, polite, and humorous on the set. They got along so well, in fact, that Fisher found it a real challenge to act if she hated him. Which was, hey, he just blew up my parents and the entire planet, but I can't hate him.
Just can't hate you. You're just so charming, Peter Cushing.
Luke's line, "I can't see a thing in this helmet," was not scripted. Mark Hamill said this to Harrison Ford when he thought that the cameras had stopped rolling, but they decided to leave it in. George Lucas came up with the name R2-D2 during post-production of American Graffiti. One of the sound crew wanted Lucas to retrieve reel 2 of the second dialogue track. In post-production parlance, this came out as, could you get R2-D2 for me? Lucas liked the sound of that and noted it down for future use. Carrie Fisher's breasts were taped down with gaffer's tape as her costume did not permit any lingerie to be worn underneath. She joked later, "As we all know, there is no underwear in space." Contradicting this was when she wore the gold bikini in episode 6. Eventually, according to Fisher in her book Wishful Drinking, George Lucas explained the reason that Leia didn't wear underwear was because in space you become weightless. But then your body expands, but your bra doesn't, so you get strangled by your own bra. This led Fisher to quip, I want it reported in my obituary that I drowned in moonlight, strangled by my own bra. When she died in 2016, several articles detailing her death showed the above sentence.
She just can't help. She always has the final word.
Peter Cushing found the boots that he was with his costume were extremely uncomfortable to wear because they were too small for his feet. Thus, he only wore them in a few shots in which Tarkin's feet can be seen. He's seen in most of the other shots. In other shots, Peter Cushing sat around with a pair of fuzzy slippers. Yeah. I just wish he would have been sitting there with like them slippers that look like King Kong feet or something.
Yeah. The Bigfoot. Yeah, the claw furry feet. Yeah.
What's really funny is Carrie Fisher had an extremely hard time doing the scenes with him wearing because he would wear the fuzzy slippers in some scenes, and then so she had to act serious in scenes where he's wearing fuzzy slippers. Yeah. And he's in the movie he's incredibly intimidating, but in real life, he's a very charming person. He's a very nice guy. So that added to her just like trying really hard to stay in the
Can you imagine
scene.
she looked down, there's a pair of 2 pink bunny slippers just looking at her. Especially if you did like toe movements like they're coming out from or something while you're trying to stay in costume.
There was actually there's fascinating online documentaries you can get on YouTube. Peter Cushing. One of his favorite pastimes actually was playing like the actual like classic Army Men games where you had the little green Army Men actually organized battlefields like stuff like people who play Warhammer now. Peter Cushing was doing that back of Army Men back in the day. So like in a lot of ways. He was a little nerd himself in a lot of cool ways. Fun fact about the boots, though, you said like you had to wear. It goes on another film, but I remember in Rogue One when they digitally recreated him, that was actually one of the bigger pieces of struggle because they had to make it where he convincingly walked in those boots, and that was a very big challenge for those actors. Animators.
The Chewbacca suit retained a bad smell for the duration of filming after the trash compactor scene because it was all wet.
God, I bet that was awful.
Well, no, yeah. According to Mark Hamill, studio executives were unhappy that Chewbacca had no clothes and attempted to have the costume redesigned with shorts. Chewie, well, I mean, you remember the old Batman where Joker's in the shorts. I guess when I picture Chewie like in some Hawaiian shorts, Hawaiian shirt. This is the second most attended movie of all time in North America, having sold an estimated 178 million tickets over its various theatrical runs, which would be a lot of money today. The only movie to sold more tickets than this is Gone with the Wind in 1939 with 202 million.
Which we've also covered.
That is a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Making numbers.
When the stormtroopers enter the room where C-3PO and R2-D2 are hiding, one of the actors accidentally bumps his head on the doorway. It was always believed that this happened due to the actor's limited visibility. However, British actor Laurie Good, who claimed to be on the one inside the suit, later said that he was distracted by an upset stomach that day. 4 takes of the shot were filmed that day, and the last one, which included the bump, made it into the movie. When the special editions came out in 1997, a sound effect has been added to the scene to accompany that bump. This war making him paying homage to the goof. Also, George Lucas also had Jango Fett bang his head on the door in Star Wars Episode 2 as a homage to the incident.
They've also paid homage to that in some of the video games as well. Some of that cutscenes at the start.
The gift that keeps on giving.
A little tiny iconic scene.
Now I found this interesting. This is the only Star Wars movie where Darth Vader's theme, the Imperial March, is not played in some form or another, as it has not been written yet at the time.
Oh.
I mean, that's iconic with Darth Vader.
Notice that. Huh.
A great deal of the movie was shot by vintage 1950s VistaVision cameras because they were of higher quality than any others available. After this movie was released, the price of these cameras skyrocketed. Darth Vader only has 12 minutes of screen time in this movie.
That makes sense.
But the minutes he's there, he's killing people like Chogo.
Or like Jaws and Steven Spielberg's Jaws. Having the shark not appear until the very end, or very limited case, makes him all the more imposing.
That's what I said. That I think that worked there. Less is more. You know. What I mean?
Exactly. The less is more.
That's actually a lot of the times been the case with Vader in a lot of different mediums. Is just less is more with Vader. Like he's just this sort of ominous presence that is there but not there, and then when he does show up, you're like, oh no.
His existence is terrifying enough to know, let alone his presence.
Exactly.
Right. The music by John Williams is ranked number 1 on AFI's top 100 film scores. Of course it is. The Jawa's language is Zulu, electronically sped up. Greedo's language is Quechua, 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 an indigenous South American language. Sorry, my South American listeners, if I Terence that. When George Lucas screened the movie, for 20th Century Fox, the reaction was surprisingly positive. Alan Jr. and the other studio executives loved the movie, and Gareth Wiggin told Lucas, "This is the greatest film I have ever seen," and cried during the screening. Lucas found this shocking and rewarding as he never gained any approval from a studio executive before. The bantha being seen mounted by a Tusken Raider after they spot Luke Skywalker's speeder was actually an Asian elephant owned by exotic animal trainer Ralph Helfer.
Ralph. Just
Ralph.
Ralph.
Wreck-It Ralph. Dressed in a costume of fur and fake horns. Filming the scene proved difficult because the elephant was not accustomed to the extreme heat of Death Valley and kept removing the costume. What does it all mean?
What is accustomed to the heat of Death Valley? Death
Not
is...
an elephant.
Yeah, right.
Carrie Fisher was not accustomed to using guns prior to filming this movie. In preparation, she took shooting lessons from the same person that taught Robert De Niro to shoot for Taxi Driver in 1976.
Wow.
Small world. Here it was.
Wow.
George Lucas waived the normal writer and director fee and asked for a mere $175,000 plus 40% of the merchandising rights. Oh, man.
A paltry sum. I probably won't make anything off it.
Yeah, so, wow. That's just crazy. Princess Leia and Obi-Wan Kenobi never actually met in this movie. The closest they get to meeting is when she sees him from a distance during the lightsaber duel. Which, you think that's odd.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have to wonder, like, because the time of this recording, they've just announced the casting for the Obi-Wan TV show. They wonder if they might rectify that in some way and actually having Obi-Wan and Carrie Fisher, not Obi-Wan and Princess Leia, interact in some way. If they do Carrie Fisher, I'll be really amazed.
Well, with Alec Guinness.
Yeah, Alec Guinness. Yeah. But it'd be really amazing to see if they do that later on, have Princess Leia and Obi-Wan interact anyway.
I don't think they will, though.
It's more of a relationship between Obi-Wan and Senator, or her
Princess Leia's father.
Yeah, more or less than her herself.
You might mention her, but I don't.
Her as a
I don't
child,
think. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think they will.
We'll see. I'm very curious.
I did see the casting list for it. I'm quite excited.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, but they didn't tell you who was playing who either. So
don't care.
And here we go. We're going to talk about Mr. Sir Alec Guinness. The accounts of how Sir Alec Guinness regards this movie and his work on it vary greatly. He frequently recalled the experience of making this movie as a bad one and constantly claimed that it was his idea to have his character killed off in the first movie so as to limit his involvement and make sure he wouldn't have to carry on saying these rubbish lines. He later mentioned to shrivel up each time someone mentioned the movie. In one particular infamous incident, a young boy asked for his autograph, proudly told him he had seen the movie over 100 times, and Guinness gave it to him after made him promise to never watch it again. He also claimed to throw away all Star Wars related fan mail without even opening it, because he hated the fact that he would not be most remembered as Obi-Wan Kenobi, despite other roles which he held in much higher regard. Contrary to all this, George Lucas has said he made the decision to kill off Kenobi since the character had no part play in the movie's finale, and he deserved a memorable exit. According to George Lucas, Guinness was less than happy that his character was dying earlier than expected, and even appeared to enjoy his time on set. Lucas, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher have always stated how patient and helpful Guinness was on the set, and praised his professionalism and respectfulness to all cast and crew members. While Guinness made no secret that he disliked the dialogue in Lucas's script, he claimed that he accepted the role for two reasons. One, he was an admirer of Lucas's previous movie, American Graffiti. And number two, the narrative compelled him to read the whole script through to the end in spite of not liking the dialogue and not being a fan of science fiction. Of the final movie, he remarked that he found it staggering as spectacle and technically brilliant, exciting, very noisy, and warm-hearted. The battle scenes at the end of the movie goes on for 5 minutes too long, and some of the dialogue excruciating as much as is lost in his noise, but it remains a vivid experience. So
That's
this guy,
as critical as it could be.
Yeah, this guy just didn't like anybody. Period. I don't think.
I also I feel like you almost get two sides of your story. Like, the side of working with Alec Guinness sounds like a tremendous, a great experience of learning and being very helpful and kind and gracious, but also having absolutely a complete no hold punches criticism of the work he actually has on the sci-fi film. He doesn't care for the genre. Right. He doesn't care for the writing. He doesn't care for all those things.
There's another
somehow very
thing
nice
in here about him, and I'll tell you, there's another funny statement coming up soon.
All right.
According to an interview with George Lucas, originally Luke Skywalker was going to be a girl, and Han Solo was going to be an alien, and the Wookiees were called Jawas, and R2-D2 and C-3PO were called A2 and C3.
Sounds like a very different movie.
Also a very George Lucas move, though.
George Lucas had not originally intended to have Anthony Daniels be the voice for C-3PO. He only changed his mind after a suggestion by Stan Freberg, one of the actors considered as Daniels' replacement. Daniels' voice was altered in post-production. His character was supposed to be like a used car salesman. Ultimately, though, George Lucas was won over by the charisma of Daniels' reading as the part as a snooty British butler, and so Daniels has been the voice of C-3PO ever since. Much of the Millennium Falcon is made up of junk parts from cars and airplanes, much of which were obtained for dumping grounds and the like. Chewbacca was modeled after George Lucas's dog, Indiana. And I think you see that again in The Last Crusade, Indiana Jones' The Last Crusade, where he's like, well, no, Indiana. He's like, we named the dog Indiana. Peter Mayhew worked as an orderly in a Yorkshire hospital prior to being cast in this movie. So when George Lucas and I think Gary Kurtz over at the time to see if they're, he's like, where are all the basketball players? You know what I mean? That nobody said. And he said, I think I found one. And as soon as Peter stood up, I said to him, you've got the job. He said, we call it mind casting because it's really about people controlling their bodies. You're not looking really for the voice at that moment. You put that in later. He said he wasn't quite tall enough, though. He was only 7'3", and I wanted someone who was 7'5". So we put high-heeled shoes on him.
Another fun fact about his performance, though, he did actually create his own Wookiee, roar, that kind of whole thing.
Yeah.
But it just didn't work out in George Lucas's liking, so they got to do a post-recording where they used animal noises instead.
Well, we'll get to that, too. Somebody's got that in our notes, I'm
sure. Everything's been documented like 5 times in these notes, so we're going to be a little redundant.
George Lucas' script evolved into a mammoth 200-page screenplay. Having spending a full year writing it, he was reluctant to condense it, so instead he chose to concentrate on the first third with a view to expanding the remaining 2/3 into 2 additional movies. Yeah. So, this has already went on for like an hour and 15 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this down, or cut this one off for now. So we'll go ahead and stop it here, and then we'll come back and we'll do part 2 here in a minute. So I think that's a wrap on part 1, and that's a wrap.
And cut.
Hey, you guys got it!
Yeah!